Hello everybody, hope you're having a wonderful day. Welcome to this, my fifth and final video in the 2020 pandemic project series. In the last video, I showed you the project I did in replacing my fuel tank. Haven't really actually gone out yet with it, but I don't anticipate any problems. I start the engine up every once in a while and it runs as expected. So that's another big project off the list. But while I was waiting for the fuel tank to arrive, it took about 6 weeks from the time I ordered it to the time I got it. There were a few other little projects around the boat that I wanted to do. So I'm going to go ahead and take you through those. About the same time I ordered the fuel tank, I also ordered a 20-gallon polyethylene water tank. And that's basically the tank that I use when I go out to the islands for just water. Technically it's potable water, but I usually bring 5-10 gallons of drinking water, filtered drinking water. So the water in this tank is mainly for washing dishes and flushing the toilet and that kind of stuff, because I don't like using seawater in the toilet. Now let me show you this tank here. This is the tank here, and I can't show you really any more than that because taking this SETI section out is a right pain in the butt. And I thought I had pictures of this or video as I was doing the project, but I can't seem to find them. But bottom line is there's a tank that's in there. Previous to that, I had a flexible water tank that I had put in there when I first bought La Mer. And after a couple of years, that gave up the ghost. It sprung a few leaks. And I had it installed as best as I could, but it still moved around a lot and ended up leaking. So I kind of shied away from that kind of tank. So I installed this tank, and in order to install it properly and keep it from moving around, I had to build a frame around it, which I did out of plywood. So that baby is in there nice and solid, isn't going to move around. The shape of that well kind of widens at the back and narrows as it goes forward, and the sides of the hull kind of slant, so the tank just didn't fit in there nicely. I had to build up a platform for that. And gosh, I wish I could show you the pictures of what I did because it was pretty cool. I used that rigid foam that I had used for the bilge area, and I created this nice platform for that water tank to fit on. I cut it and carved it so when that tank fit in there, it was nice and level and solid, wasn't going to move around. I fiberglassed that in there with chopped strand mat and painted it with the Total Boat epoxy bilge paint, and just got it in there nice and tight and solid. So that was one project down. The next project I did was here in the galley. This is my galley. Got a stainless steel sink there. I've got my cooking area here. I've got my pantry here with storage underneath. This whole thing I did really early on when I bought La Mer. This had tile, plywood with tile on it, and it was disgusting. And then I've got my refrigerator here, which is a 12-volt angle, also plugs into the 110, 120, and it's auto switching, so whatever power is available, it'll always go to shore power, but if that's not there, it'll go to battery power. So that works out great. But the project I did while I was waiting for my fuel tank to arrive was to create this gimbal bracket for my cooktop. Now, in early 2020, pre-pandemic, I had here a two-burner gimbaled propane burner system. Watching a bunch of other sailing channels, I got inspired to get rid of my propane and try out this induction cooktop. And I'm really happy with it. So I originally just set it on top of the same platform that I had my propane burner on. But I knew eventually when I went out sailing it was going to need to be gimbaled. So that was this project, was to create this gimbal. I also have here an electric water kettle for my coffee. My coffee, I use a French press, And I use this obviously to heat up the water for that, but I also use this for washing dishes and the occasional sponge bath that I might take here if I don't feel like going up to the showers or whatever, or when I'm out at the islands I can do the same thing. But again, this project was about building this gimbal. So I had to do some experimenting about the physics of this, and I'm not a science guy by any stretch of the imagination, so I did learn quickly that something that gimbaled kind of from the top, the weight distribution just wouldn't work. It would just want to flip over. So I knew I needed to get the center of the weight down below the pivot point. So I experimented with a few things with some plywood and so forth, and finally ultimately came up with this configuration that I knew would work. And so what I did is I had these angle brackets fabricated at my local metal shop that I do a lot of work with, and basically comes down to an angle and a little shelf underneath there, and then I pop riveted on the plate. At first I was going to go with a plywood plate or maybe even starboard, but then I decided to go with an aluminum plate. Just seemed stronger and just looked better and would be easy to clean. So I did that. I attached the bottom of the feet that this has that just sits on the countertop. I affixed screws from below, so this is solid on there. I did the same thing with the base of the kettle. That's solidly attached, and that sits there. And then to let it pivot, I made this locking unit here. I could just pull up on this ring, and that pulls out, and now this is gimbaled. And it works perfectly. I mean, right now when it settles at absolutely perfect level. The way that this is balanced, where this sits on top of the plate, where this sits, makes it perfectly level here. I can put a nice big pot of water for cooking spaghetti, stays level when I'm at dock, when I'm at rest, but then when I go out, it will gimbal. And then certainly when I want to lock it, I just put the pin. I'm doing this with one hand, which I can do, and it just goes in there. Whoops. Actually, while it's open, I'll show you what I have down here. So I have this little little pin thing that goes into, and that just slides down, goes into there, and now that's locked, not going anywhere. So that's what that's about. And on top of this burner, I've got this silicone thing that goes on top, and it works really good. If I put a pot on that, I got my pots and stuff down there. If I put that on there, and let me take this lock off again, you can see that thing will not move with a simple pivot. Now obviously if you're sailing and you're bobbing up and down, you know, this is going to move around. So I don't really intend that that's going to be the final solution for this. I am going to design some brackets that will mount to the sides here that will somehow come around and clamp onto or wrap the bottom around the edges of my pots and pans. So that's still something I have to do. And then the other thing I did was I put in these little oak dowel pegs. What I got for that is over here, I got a wood cutting board that just slides on the top of that. And this thing actually stays in there really good. And then when I want to take this out, I can pull it out. And one of the things that I put in here to help kind of lock it in place is where those dowels are on the side, I've cut in these little grooves on both sides to sit on the dowels. So that helps keep it in place. The other thing I do with this, when I'm washing dishes, I've got a silicone mat and dish rack up here that's mounted with this bungee cord. This removes real easy. I can lay out my mat, put my dish tray there, and I wash my dishes and I can dry them over there. And that works out really great. And then when I'm done, I just, drain this, wipe it down, roll it up, put it in here, and then mount it up in its area there. So that's really cool. And then when I want to take this out and get it out of my way, I've got an area here along the side of my refrigerator that stores really nicely in there. And I'll put a little pin in there to keep that in place. And that's it. That's my galley. So the next project I did was a little bit of cosmetic work. Yeah, it was kind of fun. What I did here is along the bottom floor here of the settees, this was originally white Formica. And it was dingy and cracked and peeling in some places. And I just didn't like the look of the white at all. As you can tell, I like the color of wood. So I got some thin plywood veneer that I took all the old Formica off, and I prepped it, and then I epoxied with thickened epoxy the veneer, and I did that all around here in the salon. So all around here, along that side, and along this curve here. And then once they were all installed, glued on or epoxied on, then I stained it with 3 coats of a polyurethane stain that's got polyurethane waterproof finish. It's an exterior stain already built onto it. So I didn't need to add like a varnish on top of it. So yeah, it's got that curved around there, and I'm really happy with the way that turned out. So that's it. That wraps up my 2020 projects. Just to recap, I removed the wood headliner in the main salon, repaired the loose stringers that the headliner attaches to. I cut out channels in the cockpit combing so that I could run most of the running rigging to the cockpit for easier single-handed sailing. Then I sanded, varnished, and reinstalled the headliner. I did some structural repairs to the bilge and raised the floor of the bilge up a few feet to increase bilge pump efficiency and to make maintaining the bilge easier. I then replaced my old leaky stainless steel diesel fuel tank with a new aluminum tank, swapped out the alternator with a backup alternator to correct an issue with the regulator. And as seen in this video, I added a 20-gallon water tank, designed and built a gimbal for my cooktop, and replaced the tired and unattractive Formica on the feet of the settees with a stained plywood veneer. Holy shit, that was a lot of work. But you know what? Life on Le Maire has become quite a bit more comfortable because of it. But I'm very happy to have 2020 behind me. There's still plenty of projects to do, and shoot, I could just do a whole video just outlining the projects coming up. But I don't know that I'll do that. Anyway, this is going to do it for this video. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and also feel free to leave any questions or comments. I always appreciate those. And if this is your first time to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, and don't forget to click that notifications button. That'll let you know every time I release a new video. Anyway, you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Later.